Hey everybody, welcome to the Network Collective live stream. Hey Jordan, how are you? Thanks for joining me on the stream.
Yes, I'm doing well. I'm looking out my window into darkness now, but we are.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say Jim Cantori, right? That's his name, the guy from the Weather Channel. He's in town, so we're having some fun weather some fun weather events. We had not a lot of snow, but it was predicted to be a lot of snow. So there's more coming.
Okay.
Though. Yeah, we were supposed to. Well, it got as bad as predictions of like 2 feet, but
wow,
yeah.
2 feet.
Yes, 2 feet. But it looks like got enough. I'm sorry, but it looks like we've got we're gonna get about 10 inches, maybe 15 max. So not nearly as bad as they were calling.
No way.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mean not from today, but from the near future? What do you have, a second wave coming or something?
Yeah, so it went over to sleet, and now it's supposed to go back to snow again tonight. And supposedly when we wake up in the morning, it's supposed to be somewhere between a foot and a half of snow. So
wow,
this
that's amazing.
It's hilarious because last year we got none. Like all winter, I think we got a grand total of about 3 inches. So welcome to winter in 2020. So that's
I'm just a little bit south of you, and we're in the very minimal band of snow. It's supposed to get half an inch to an inch, and we got probably an inch, and it turned to sleet very quick and then quickly to rain. And so now I'm sure we're all going to be battling ice in the morning in my region. But fortunately, most people will be off the roads, right? Most people still working from home, and But and the kids also, I had put out a tweet out there the other day that like snow days don't matter anymore. Like when it snows, you still have school. and I was just kind of joking, but I just kind of like had that thought. And then 2 days ago, our school district sent, that text message goes to all the parents. They've changed the wording of the snow days. So now instead of like a code red, code blue, they're doing virtual learning, schools open. I guess for faculty or staff or teachers or whoever needs to go in there, virtual learning, buildings closed, and then no virtual learning, and then all virtual learning, I guess some half day.
Sounds so confusing. Like, I've been hearing this. So we homeschool, right? So our kids are always home. So for us, I have sympathy, right? But I'm definitely not feeling the same pain that a lot of other parents are feeling and having to adjust their schedules and all the stuff that's happened because of COVID. But seeing a lot of parents very, very frustrated because things just keep going back and forth. And then there were some announcements that there were going to be no school days because of the fact that because we figured out the remote learning thing, or at least, figured it out, whatever. We figured it out, but we haven't. And I'm like, wow, like no school days for the kids. Like, you're going to be sitting at home.
You mean snow days? No snow days.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No snow days for the kids. You're going to be sitting at home in front of a screen, and there's going to be half a foot of snow outside, and they're going to focus. Like, good luck with that one. So yeah, it's been interesting changes for sure for parents and kids. But yeah, that sounds really, really confusing. I'm glad I'm not having to navigate that.
But you know what? It's really not that bad. I mean, it's not that complex. It's just something new that we all have to adjust to. But for me, I'm not a fan of the cold. I don't like cold weather, but I say that with a big asterisk, okay? I love the snow. There is something so calming about the snow. When a nice snow comes down at night, and it's a nice dry snow, and all you can hear are the crystals piling up on top of themselves. No cars are driving. Everyone's at home. Everyone's got their heaters on. It's just, I like to go out with like a cup of coffee or a cup of hot chocolate or something and just walk the neighborhood. I'm the only footprints in the snow. Even though it was a work day today, it was nice to be able to just like take lunch break and like look out the window and just see the snow come down. I mean, 2020 has been weird. It's been rough. I've had my ups and downs, but like seeing that snow still brings that, like, there's some sort of like calm joy that comes over me. And even though I know nothing will be left of it tomorrow, it'll just be ice out there. I still have had that feeling today. And so I hope we get a couple more. Actually, this is one of the few times in my region, right? I'm in central Maryland, in my region where we get snow in December. my region normally doesn't get snow in December. Typically, our snowstorms start mid to late January, and like I think every big blizzard we've ever had has been like in that in the February timeframe, like late into winter season is when we have those big snowstorms. So it's a little unusual to have snow this early, but it was good, man. I'll take it. Snow again tomorrow. I don't care. I mean, what does it matter? I don't have to go driving in it.
That was my take. It's
dump
like,
as much.
Everyone was all worked up about it. Now, first off, I love this because there's a fun cycle here, specifically where we live. We live in a valley. So both sides of the valley are mountains, and we are fairly protected from weather. But the people who've lived their entire lives have absolutely no understanding that that's what happens. And so we get these huge predictions as these nor'easters come through that we're going to get feet of snow, and then they all just kind of just drizzle out, and everyone around us gets hit hard. And specifically where I live doesn't. And so I've just gotten super cynical about it. Like anytime I hear a forecast, I'm like, okay, 1 to 2 inches, got it. And then when it's more, but this time I was like, I don't like, what's it going to mess up? Like everyone's supposed to be staying home anyway. Like, so there's a couple days where you actually have to, like, it shouldn't have been a big deal. But anyway, this is not the weather show, so we probably should move on. But that's where we're, that's kind of what we're navigating right now. I'm fully expecting that, because of that, we'll have some sort of power outage in the middle of this, which would mean that would be catastrophe, right? I'm going to have to get a generator and multiple backup internet connections to make this live stream resilient. So, man, what's up with you?
Same old. We did something that we're going to show a little bit later was a discussion, a demo and discussion that we had this weekend with somebody. But I'm still loving diving into network traffic, diving into PCAP. So I've started studying for my network forensic analyst certification, which is by GIAC. Which I can't remember what that acronym, what certification body that is. It's the certification body where the SANS trainings are meant to reinforce.
It's GIAC. So, that's what it is.
GIAC. No, I don't know what it means.
I don't know that I've ever known that acronym. I've known of them for a very long time. I've never, or actually initialism. I just said it wrong. It bothers me. I've never known what that's meant. So if somebody knows, throw it in the chat. What does GIAC mean?
So I started studying for my network forensic analyst, and it's pretty cool. It's all about diving into NetFlow, diving into PCAPs, a lot of IDS, IPS understanding, and just about how to build that process around incident response, digital forensics and incident response, and what are the artifacts and how do you deal with those artifacts, in a way that can be trusted in court. Right. It's one thing just to be able to like pop open a PCAP and be like, oh, well, here's the problem with your application, but that won't necessarily hold up in court. Right. How do you be able to provide those artifacts that can only be argued in one way
with forensic integrity? Yep.
Yeah. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. And it just gives me just another deeper look and another perspective at packets, which is why we build these networks. Right. So,
what? I think the whole world needs a lesson on forensic integrity. With as many conspiracy theories and all the nonsense that's going around right now and people and their evidence, I think everybody should have at least a summary course on what forensic integrity is and how to collect evidence, because no one knows. Well, not no one, but few know.
I'm just learning now as it pertains to network traffic. So that's very cool. So if anyone out there has any questions or has advice or wants to join me on the journey, it's very cool. And I think I might have another SANS possible training or certificate maybe after this one. I'll be very interested to do.
Join you in the process. I mean, like, what would that look like? I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I know there's been study groups and other things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, what have you done historically when you've studied with people? What does that look like? Because all of mine, just for background, I've done myself. And so it may not be the best way to do it. I've had maybe a few peers of which I could bounce things off of, but I was never part of any study groups. And so I've always wondered about this. I think it would be more distracting than helpful to me, but I'm curious because a lot of people seem to get value out of it. What does it look like for you?
You know what, Jordan? I think this is an excellent topic. I'd like you to pen it down because I'd like us to do more discussion about this, because I don't want to definitely sideline the show, because I'd like to bring a couple of other people in who have worked in these study groups, who have seen success in these study groups. For me, I've done them off and on throughout my CCIE. I didn't do them anything prior to that. I always did self-study for CCNA, CCNP, and Security Plus. Self-study. CCIE, I started branching out, and just because I did the live stream, I did everything in front of everybody just to help get connected with people. So it can be distracting if you let it. I think the best thing is just finding peers that are doing the same thing as you, to be able to encourage each other. And also, if you do get stuck on something and you're reading the material and it just doesn't make sense, you have someone that you can bounce something off to, someone that you're not embarrassed to ask, someone that is an equal, because you're both trying for the same thing. I feel like sometimes there's a barrier that people don't want to ask people who maybe are above them at their job or something, or ask others for help because it makes them look like less of an engineer or less of a professional. But when you're in these study groups, that's sort of gone away because it's this big level playing field. It's very comfortable. A lot of people find a lot of good friends in there. I've met a lot of great people in different groups. Router Gods, the Land Tamer, he and I started this a long time ago. So it can be distracting. But I think the value that I get out of it is meeting people who are interested in the same thing as you and who can support you. It's very hard to do that, like simultaneous labbing, where we're both like logged into the same lab and like, I'll do these routers and you do those routers. I don't know. I've never seen that work. I've actually never seen that work. It's more work to make that work than I think the value you get out of it.
I think if your lab is built with the idea of partnering up, I've seen it work, but that's not the way that like study labs I've seen be built. They're assuming you're doing them solo. And so, no. All right. Well, I'm with you.
I think there's a big window to talk about that, about study groups, their value, and maybe how to get value out of them, how to make them less of a distraction and more value. So let's do that discussion in a couple of weeks.
All right. Sounds good. We'll do that. So I think last week we did the news for about 45 minutes, and it was probably a bit much, although I think there was a lot of conversation in there. I do still want to cover some of the stuff that happened this week, though, because I think that there's been lots of, well, let's just say interesting developments in some of the stuff we talked about last week. And there's a couple of things that I think are worth knowing. So I think we'll start with the big one. And apparently all the things have been hacked, like all of them.
All the things have been hacked, definitely.
All the things have been hacked. So I put a tweet out there, which actually resonated more than I was just more like thought vomit that just came out, and I put it out there. I'm surprised with how ubiquitous SolarWinds is. Let's just start there. Okay. And I'm just, my history with SolarWinds is very long. I've used their products pretty much since I started in this career. Back from before they had Orion, it was just their engineers tool set, like some of the stuff that they've made and I've used. I was part of their, I don't know how many people actually know this, but SolarWinds had, or still has, I think they still have, I don't know, a certification program. And I was part of the beta when they launched that. I went and took an exam. It was the longest exam I've taken short of the CCIE. It was like 4.5 hours and was hundreds of questions because they were testing this question pool, and ended up passing that. So I was one of the very first SolarWinds certified professionals. So like I have a long history of SolarWinds. So like it's really weird to see them in the news because usually only my peers like know who they are or what they do. And so I know, I know they're around, obviously get into a lot of different environments and understand that they're in different places. I'm sorry. This one is just too good. I have to actually put it up here. So it says your real tenure of being a SolarWinds user is how many cold calls you get from their sales team after putting your number into their download forms. And unfortunately, that's very true. They have a big reputation for being pretty aggressive on the sales side. I actually got involved with them before that was the case. Like they weren't aggressive whenever that was something that happened after the fact. So I've watched this whole progression with them. I'm still shocked at how pervasive they are. They used to be the underdog. They used to be it's less than what CA put out. It's less than what IBM put out, but it was good enough. And now it seems to be, now it seems to be everywhere. Like everyone is using it. And everyone, of course, anytime you paint with that broad of a brush, it's never accurate. It's not everybody. But there seems to be an awful lot of people who have it in their environment because now there's a lot of places that seem to be hurting because of this hack, right? So kind of taking a step back, what we learned after our talk last week, we talked about FireEye. Didn't have anything to do with SolarWinds.
I was going to say, let's rewind the tape a little bit. Where we left off was FireEye was reporting an incident. They immediately they quickly went public with it. They quickly disclosed what was gathered, what was attacked, and quickly released a response to that. Actual signatures and detection response to it, being a cybersecurity, digital forensics, and incident response. They are. I think if they didn't do that,
if they didn't do it and it was discovered, they would have lost credibility. Yeah, for sure.
Big time. So anyhow, that's where we left off. And I remember the questions we were asking ourselves last time was, why would someone want to hack FireEye to exfiltrate the tools, the red team tools that they use to hack other people, for these red team engagements, for what they get paid to do? And I think what probably naturally happened was when FireEye released the detections, their customers went and used the detections on their networks. And I believe their customers went and found signatures firing, found things in memory, found their tools and different detections everywhere. So the next components was U.S. Treasury and who else was it? CBP? The Border Patrol? I
hadn't heard Border Patrol, but it's completely possible. I know Treasury and Commerce were in there. And then I know that later on it came out that DHS and what was the other one other than DHS? There was one more that got announced with that. Was it FBI? I forget.
Well, either way, the common thread there ended up being SolarWinds and SolarWinds products that had a backdoor in them. And I think what's going around now is trying to understand exactly how and when someone got a backdoor into SolarWinds product. And why this is so dangerous, right, is most people put SolarWinds sometimes in their out-of-band networks for doing monitoring, for logging into devices, for pulling backup configs, for doing, all kinds of polling and metrics gathering and alerting. I mean, SolarWinds makes a lot of different products. And most of the time you don't just buy one, you buy a suite of products. So most people that have one thing have likely a backdoored version of another. And these things are everywhere. And to what you were saying actually just a moment ago was you didn't realize that they were everywhere. I remember working on some other large networking projects where they don't use SolarWinds for monitoring, for backups, for logs, for NetFlow, for anything. And the question was always, well, why don't you use SolarWinds? And the answer to that was always SolarWinds was built and to where they were at least a couple of years ago, they were built and their products were engineered for the enterprise. And when I'm talking about more like service provider type situations, they weren't ready for telco scale. SolarWinds wasn't built for telco scale. They were built for enterprises. And in some of the networks I've worked in is more of a telco scale. So that's why they didn't use SolarWinds. But I would go around to, I used to teach a class. So I'd go around and ask the people, well, what do you guys use for monitoring? And it was hand up SolarWinds, hand up SolarWinds, hand up SolarWinds, hand up SolarWinds. Almost everyone was using SolarWinds somewhere in their environments. And now I'm thinking back to all of those classes I've had of students that are likely all affected by this. And it's just because I think they have probably, and it sounds like an aggressive sales team. I don't run SolarWinds personally, so I don't know. But they have a product that fits small to medium to large enterprises. And I think that's probably the bulk of networking. And that's why this is such a huge scale and why this keeps growing and growing. And we give SolarWinds access to our infrastructure. That's the scary part, because what that means to sort of back that out. You wrote up a very good blog post on the Network Collective, networkcollective.com, and with a couple of numbered bullets for steps to take for some very good actions. And definitely, I mean, we're past that point, but a lot of people, even in the Network Collective Slack, we're talking about they had to either shut down their SolarWinds server or unplug it from the network. There was a lot going on. This has grown and grown. And I think we're at the point now where a lot of people were very confident. This was Russia. That was pointed out very early on. Seems to still be the case. The scope of people the scope of customers, of SolarWinds customers, is growing that are turning up for this. And the infected files were still available, like as of yesterday, still online as part of the update package as of yesterday. So I think that might have been fixed.
So I don't know about last night. And I saw that tweet that you're referencing, and I know what you're talking about. The malware was in a specific DLL file, but I don't know that DLL file is exclusive. I don't know if they attached it as an additional function on the DLL or if that DLL was exclusive to the malware, because I read the reports and I don't know that it was stated that it was exclusively, like, if this DLL was present, that meant you had it. And that person who was checking it just looked for the DLL file. He didn't look for the action. And so I don't know that tweet was accurate. It may very well be. I'm not trying to call him out. I'm just saying, I definitely don't want to call out SolarWinds for not fixing it if they had. I just don't know. I don't know if they'd updated their binaries on their website or not. I would be shocked if they hadn't. That would be pretty big dereliction of duty, I think. So I just want to be careful about calling that out. Now, I think the reason why it's so pervasive, right? It's not just that it touches the infrastructure; it's that it manages the infrastructure, and so we give it credentials of which it has to use. Meaning, these aren't just sitting there encrypted, right? They may be encrypted as they sit, but there's a point in the process where they have to decrypt them to use them. To bring them and use them to gain access to other things. And, in a straight monitoring world, that might be read only if you're talking just only SNMP. But I know that there's a lot of SolarWinds tools that use Windows admin style credentials to go out and pull information from services and logs. Not to mention that there's a lot of integration with users and whatever. And SolarWinds, just like so many tools out there, you don't have to be domain admin for it to run. But man, it's a whole lot easier if you just give it that domain admin account and let it go, right? Like, at the end of the day, and you say, well, this is accessing all the infrastructure anyway. What's the risk? Well, this is the risk. Like, this is the problem. SolarWinds itself did not malfunction, but someone got bad code into it, it seemed like such a far-fetched idea so many years ago. But supply chain attacks are becoming, like the holy grail. It's what people are pursuing. And after this, I can't imagine that they don't pursue them even more, just because of here's this innocuous package. We're so used to seeing and touching it. I just never even considered a supply chain attack on it before this happened. I thought about those credentials and what those credentials would do. I realized that, like, you don't want a bad actor logging on. I get that. I never imagined that when I pulled the software down from SolarWinds, the bad actor would already be installed. Right? And that makes you all of a sudden go, wait, what else? Where else could this happen? What other tools, what other pieces of software are out there? And it's just so core and so important. Like, you can't not give it those credentials. Like, it's an admin. It's an automated admin to your network. Like, it needs them. So I don't know.
I just wanted to say that this has been, it's been like the most exciting week in cyber and in IT news. I mean, actually, I think so. This is, it's very unfortunate. And there's a lot of people, that are going to have to pull some long nights and give some heavy answers because of this. But like, and I know people will like blame it on 2020, like, oh man, this can't get any worse. It's 2020. But God, I've been waiting years for something like this to happen. And what I mean is like, just to be like so excited. It's on the front page of everywhere. You know what I mean? Local news is reporting on it. You know what I mean? Like it's everywhere.
It made it.
You wanted it.
It made it to being a worldwide event when it became part of the conversation about election fraud within like a day. all of a sudden it was in every corner of the internet with every conspiracy theory about how SolarWinds was the avenue for election fraud, which when you know what's going on is comical. But at the same time, like, okay, like look at what it's feeding. You know what I'm saying? Like this insecurity, it's a problem. It really is. So I think there's going to be a lot of developments here. I think there's another angle here. We don't really know what happened, so I don't want to point, to fingers too quickly, but there's some stuff going on with the finances that look really shady. The CEO and another vice president who sold big stakes, a director who sold big stakes like last week or last month, meaning that they might have had foreknowledge of this going on and there was insider trading. I don't know if that's the case or not, so I'm not making an accusation there, but it does not look good. And so like I fear for SolarWinds as a company. Like I really do, because they're going to have an integrity problem because they got hacked just like anyone else would. But I think that's recoverable because it's software and we all know every piece of software is vulnerable. It's clear they didn't have good practices. We saw some headlines come out saying that they had, really basic passwords on the FTP server, which hosted their downloads. So, signing it might have been a little bit more difficult, but if that's the type of security they put at their edge, can you imagine what's under the covers? Like there's a lot there to kind of dig into, and it's going to keep happening. Then you add the executive stuff, you add the fact that it affected federal agencies, which means the government's going to care and they're going to keep pursuing it until they have some answers. It's going to be an interesting road for them going forward. I don't envy those guys at all. It's going to be there. And, the number of instances of SolarWinds 1, 2, 3 in our chat right now, which by the way, was the password. And yeah. Oh my word.
Yeah. Right. But one of the last things I want to say is, we push and push and push from cybersecurity on as much as we can, but even red teams and blue teams, and that's in my opinion, one of the best ways to scenarios is by bringing in sort of, live threat actors to simulate attacks within your network. Therefore, you can see and work with real live artifacts. This is not one of the things that are often practiced from red side or blue side. It's just one of those things that it's becoming more and more common in the news because there's some big hits that have happened, but they're not practicing it every day, behind the curtain, training for it. I should say they're not training for it every day behind the curtain. And so I think that's something that this will bring out in red teams and blue teams, is that this will be table stakes. This will be something that everyone will be ready for and will be training for, and will have in their purview going forward.
Yeah, once it's known, then we go after it. It's a bit of cat and mouse there for sure. So a couple other interesting news pieces, things we won't spend a lot of time on, but it looks like it was announced today that DevNet 2020 extended their deadline. Like this was something I was not personally hyped about, but like they were doing some sort of promotion that if you were studying for a DevNet certification, you got some additional accreditation, not accreditation, it's probably the wrong word. You got a fun little badge that said you completed it in 2020. So DevNet 2020, right? Yep. So apparently you can be DevNet 2021 and still get the DevNet 2020 badge so long as you complete it by some date in February. Do you know the details about that, Tony?
24.
February 24th.
I think February 24. And if I remember correctly, that's what they did at the beginning of this year, 2020, right? If I remember correctly, the CCIE cutover was supposed to be like January something or February 1st or something like that. And they moved it, I thought, till February 24th. So I think maybe they're just sort of lining that up, just moving it over a little bit so that it gives people that full time to be able to test for it. I think from Cisco's perspective, I think it's excellent marketing. I mean,
sure.
They were about to have a ton of sad people out there who have been studying all year. And I think one of the things that happened was the Pearson VUE virtual proctors. You weren't able to schedule an exam. So even if you were ready for your exam and we still have 2 weeks left in the month, you weren't able to schedule your exam. No slots were available. So I think Cisco, by extending it to February, allows people to schedule the beginning of January, the beginning of February, because I guess maybe the online proctors are either swamped by everyone taking up their schedule, or maybe the Pearson VUE is taking some time off around the holidays. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but I think it's awesome. And I mean, it's one way for Cisco and the ultimate marketing and hype machine, to keep that momentum going. I mean, I think they got a great thing going, and look how many people are going after this thing. Those are people that are learning something, that are getting certified in something. I don't have the DevNet cert. I'm a very much a noob when it comes to coding. So, when I get through the things that I want to do, I'll circle back around and get my foundation learning in.
Yeah, I think the whole branding of it, marketing of it is really smart, because they had the DevNet 500. So when they released the DevNet certs, there were the first 500 people to get a DevNet cert got an extra badge. And then you have DevNet 2020. And when you're talking about bringing something new to the market, there's getting hype behind it, especially in a market as cynical as the networking market is really unbelievably difficult. Getting attention in this market is challenging. And they managed to have done it fairly well. And so if you're studying, you got some extra time, which is great. Go schedule those exams now, because I'm sure they're going to fill up just like any other type of exam. But yeah, go get those scheduled. But yeah, you have some extra time, so good for you. And the other certification news came out today is the CCDE, right? So the new Blueprint version for V3 was just announced today on Wednesday, right? So I think that's like the paint is still wet on that. Is seeing some tweets and some things around the internet coming out about the blueprint, some of the topics, and moving some stuff around. It doesn't sound like the changes were too drastic. It looks like some modernization as you'd expect with a blueprint update. And I think the encouraging thing to me is the fact that there were some questions about the CCDE because it was kind of left out of all the CCIE changes that happened last year. So the CCIE went to all continuing education, all continuing education for research. It went to a 3-year cycle rather than a 2-year cycle. Like, there was all kinds of changes that happened. And the CCDE wasn't included with any of that. There's still a CCDE written. In fact, it is the only way you could do a one test recert on an expert level certification after all those changes. So like, it's just interesting to see Cisco make a move showing investment in that certification moving forward. So I think it's around for some time, and that's good, because there were some questions. I didn't think they were doing anything negative towards it, but I definitely heard some people asking the question. So seeing a new blueprint, seeing action on it, I think is a good sign. We'll definitely have more content around that. I definitely want to get a couple of guys who are, really tuned into the CCDE program to come on and talk about the blueprint changes and some of the things to expect. It's one of, I think, the more interesting certifications out there. I think it's probably one of the more valuable, but one of the least acquired ones. Let me rephrase valuable. Valuable from a work skill perspective. CCDE just doesn't seem to carry the same weight like a CCIE does when it comes to the hiring process, except for some very specific niches in the industry where they care about CCDE, but we're talking about like VARs, architects at VARs. So yeah, I'm excited to see that continue down the road because I think it's a really good cert from a learning perspective. Anything else news-wise, Tony?
Yeah. What else do we? No, I think that's it, unless I'm missing something.
Nope, that's everything I have on my list. Chart? Nope.
All right.
But I want to move on to the next topic here. The next topic is fun. We kind of hashed this out already. You were very passionate when we started prepping for this stream today. And let me just, this is what the title of this segment is going to be. The technology sales cycle is broken. Do you agree with that? Because I think you agree with that.
I do.
All right. So tell me what you've been experiencing.
I agree with it. So recently and in the past, I've always had trouble getting what we need from vendors. And it's because we're sort of removed from vendors. I definitely think this sales cycle is broken. I hate that when I need to acquire a product, or I'm looking to buy product A from vendor A, but vendor A doesn't sell products to customers, so you have to go through a VAR or some sort of reseller. But in order to do that, then I have to call the reseller, and I have to talk to a sales engineer. A sales engineer is someone trying to sell me something. They're trying to engineer a sale out of me. And before I can get an okay with them, I got to meet with an account manager and then the regional sales director and their sales lead and all of this stuff. There's this whole hierarchy of sales before I can even start to buy the product. And I just absolutely despise that. You know, I don't think there's anything else in the world that we buy that has that same model. You know, we were talking a little bit about ahead of the show, and you brought up a couple of valid points, but I don't agree with all of them. But yeah, I'm really just sort of disgusted in it. I want to be able to buy a product. If I got the money and I know what I want, sell me the thing. It can't be that hard. I mean, if I go into a store and I have money and I want to buy the new PlayStation 4, I don't get interrogated about my gameplay, what I intend to use it for, how long I've been doing it, what certifications I have, and then I don't have to talk to the store's manager and then the regional manager of the franchise before I can buy the product. I got the money, you got the thing, let's make an exchange. I realize not everything is that simple and everything's not that black and white, but even sometimes when it comes to as simple as just getting a demo for something, why do I need to go through this whole process? And I don't mean for you to give me a demo. I mean to give me the demo account on your site. Just give me the demo account so that I can go through and click around a little bit. Because what will happen is once I'm finished, I'm going to have questions for you. And that's when we can engage in the conversation. You know, and one of the examples that I talked with you about ahead of the show, Jordan, was like when I go to a car dealer, I don't just go to the car dealer and just go, talk me into buying something, you know, and just let the sales guy just go off and sell me whatever he wants, you know, whatever's on special that week or whatever's marked down or whatever he has the best deal on from the car manufacturer. No, I do my research ahead of time. And by the time I get to the dealer, I have already narrowed down my search to maybe a couple of cars, maybe 3 cars. Now, that doesn't mean I'm ready to lay down cash and buy sight unseen, but that means I might need to test drive a couple of them, right? Let's test drive them. Let's make sure that vehicle works for my needs. Now we can have a discussion, right? About price, about warranty, about all of this other stuff. Now we can talk about that. You know, and maybe there was something that I didn't consider. Maybe because this car dealer knows cars in and out because he works in cars, he does maintenance on cars. Maybe that's his hobby as well. Maybe he's an excellent person to give advice to. So then he starts asking me questions. Well, Tony, did you think about X, Y, and Z? Well, no, I didn't. I didn't think about that. That would be good. Okay, maybe I need to reconsider this. Okay, you know, let's go in with that. So I'm not saying that I'm coming in with a definitive answer that I know what I need better than you do, so just give it to me. But I hate the whole song and dance because definitely more times than not when I'm in a sales meeting, I'm meeting with a sleazy car salesman when I'm buying an IT product or an IT service. And I just hate that there's that model with it. You know, that's one of the great things I think that comes out of an event like Tech Field Day. Tech Field Day is all about companies giving great presentations, and there's always a little bit of chest pounding from the vendors, and I think that's okay. They have that time. That's their time to shine. All eyes are on them, and then they bring in the technical people to give these presentations that can handle the questions that the audience is throwing at them. But when I'm in sales meetings for actual customers, where are those technical people? Because I'm asking questions, and every question I'm throwing at you is, we need to talk to the SME, or we have to talk to the product engineering team, or we have to talk to this person, and I'll get back to you on that. No. I want those people here. That's why we're having this meeting. You're supposed to bring people here, not just find out what my needs are. I could have told you that over the phone. Yeah, I'm absolutely tired of being so many levels removed from vendors, right? I have to buy from a VAR or a reseller, and it's not just one level removed. There's 5 layers of people I have to go through to get a product. Like I said, it's a sales engineer and the regional person and the account manager and the regional account manager. And just give me the thing, man. I don't have time for this. So yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty aggravated about it. This comes up every so often. There have been some vendors and some salespeople that are better than others. And there are some that are just sleazy used car salesmen. And something that you said earlier, Jordan, and I hope you'll bring the point up, but people can make the difference, right? The type of person that comes in to make the sale can make the difference. It's not about bringing your SME in with all the technical chops ready to answer the questions. But coming in, being respectful, knowing what our relationship is important. And sometimes the salespeople don't understand that. They come in with that, hey, what is it going to take for me to get you into this car today? Like, I don't want this song and dance. Save it for somebody else. Give me something else. And yeah, so I'm kind of like, and plus I only have like a tolerance of about 30 minutes for that kind of thing. Like, you need to wrap it up, dude. Like, let's get out of here. We're making a sale or we're not. Next. So yeah, I don't know. I know I might be all alone in this, but if anyone's got some interesting sales stories, throw them my way, because I want to understand this. Actually, I put a tweet out there today, and I got a couple of folks chiming in, and I said, hey, educate me. Maybe this is just all stemming from ignorance. Maybe I'm not educated on the process of sales enough to understand why there are those roles. But I see a lot of them as being unnecessary. They are speed bumps and fences for me to get where I want to be. And sure. And I don't appreciate it.
So let me, I think I will throw both the fact that I have, I'd say a lot more interaction experience because I live in this reseller world. So I've seen both the good and the bad. So I'll say that, but that also comes with its own bias. So please, as I speak, know that, both those things are there. So I will say that your experience is not uncommon, and you most certainly are not alone. There are varying degrees of professionalism when it comes to sales. There's varying degrees of competence when it comes to value-added resellers. There are people behind the scenes that you don't even know are influencing the process that are influencing the process. And all of this plays a role. So let me start with the sales side, the actual salesperson, right? The account manager. Inside of resellers, we tend to give them a hard time. It's their job to show up and buy lunch because they're not the ones who sell an engineer or anything, right? The salesperson is the one who works on the soft skills, and those skills are critically important. So not to dismiss them, but it's relationship, it's partnership, it's understanding the environment, it's understanding the dynamics of the way that your company works. Some salespeople don't like to invest like that. Some salespeople want to come in, and what does it take? Slap on the back of this product. And what does it take for me to get you into this thing? What can I do to convince you that? Now, I've seen the other side of that coin where the account manager was worth $1 million because the account manager came in and to a larger organization, understood the way that purchasing worked, understood and acted as the bridge between groups that didn't talk to each other, acted as kind of the person who had the eye on the ball from the bigger picture, from what the VAR could do, from what the vendors that we used could do, and came in and kind of played quarterback to help them because no one inside the company was. And that person is someone who partners with your organization and helps you find value out of stuff and isn't pursuing a sale just because that SKU happens to have some sort of promotional bonus tied to it. Like, you need to find that salesperson, period. Like if you don't have that salesperson as part of what you're going to have a bad time. And there's a ton of them out there who are chasing bonuses, and they'll just sell you whatever they can do. The ones that you're looking for are the ones who invest in the long term. So when you talk about looking for account managers, you're looking for the people who are saying, I may not get the deal this quarter, but ultimately I want there to be 10 deals over the next 5 years, because of the idea that we build up a partnered relationship with you that is actually valuable to you. So you come to us on your own volition, not because we're the only game in town, because they're not. Whoever you're working with is not the only game in town. You have choices. Now the SEs can be great or they can be awful, right? Just like the salespeople. If your SE is great, they also can be worth a whole heck of a lot. And the reason being is most customers are not expert customers. So when new technologies come out, or to understand interactions between technologies you're looking at and maybe some of the things that you're not familiar with, having somebody who's been able to invest that time, because it's part of the revenue chain for that company, to have experts that are able to draw those lines for you is immensely valuable. I know we want to just commoditize all of technology and make it seem like it's something you can walk into a store and buy, but our systems are incredibly complex, and it's not just one individual piece. That one individual piece by itself is usually not very complex, but we have thousands of these pieces that we stitch together, and understanding how they work is important. There are some customers who don't need a lot of help from SEs, right? This is that expert customer, someone who does their own research, someone who comes in, and those are the people who are generally frustrated with the process. Tony, I imagine you behave much like an expert customer. You know what you want, you have a pretty good idea what's going on, you do your research, and you've done all that up front. I will tell you the large majority of the customers are not those customers. The large majority of the customers do not do the research. They do not have the cycles to be the experts. So that SE plays a very important role. But again, the SE you have has to be more for you as the customer than for the OEMs they partner with, right? There's competing, and you're going to notice this trend when I talk about resellers. There are competing priorities. Anytime you have a middleman, someone who sits between the product being purchased and the person doing the purchasing, they serve two masters, right? Like they have to make a choice about which way they're going to lean. Are they going to lean towards being an effective partner with their customers, or are they going to lean towards being an effective partner with their OEMs? And the answer is you can do both. But when there's a conflict, you need the reseller that leans towards the customer. Because the two can sit together, they can work together, but you have to find the right team of people. And I'm back to this idea, it's all people. Because even within organizations, large VARs, medium-sized VARs, small VARs, there are all-stars and there are absolute crap players, right? So sometimes it's not even the organization itself. Sometimes the organizations put the wrong motivations in place. And so it's harder to find the all-stars. It's harder to find the people who are doing well because they don't want to work for those places, right? But at the end of the day, you have to find the right people. Now, I think when we take some of this too, some of it is a bit protecting, protecting an old model. So there's no doubt that this is the way that it is. And there's an entire structure set up around the idea that the major OEMs don't sell direct except for to the absolute largest of customers. I think that there's some good reasons for that. I don't know that they're always true, right? And so the good reasons for that is I want my vendor very good at making equipment. Like at the end of the day, I want them writing protocols. I want them making switches. I want them making routers. That's what they're good at, right? And then I want them next on my list of important priorities. I want them to be able to support the stuff that they make. Like that's the next most important thing to me. The next most important thing to me is that they can assist the sales process through an engineering capacity and then the deployment process. So having engineering capacity around the product. And the very last thing that I care about for my OEM to be good at is to actually sell the product. Like, I don't care if it's my OEM selling the product or a middleman selling the product. If I like the person who's doing the selling, if I feel like they're a partner, it doesn't matter who they come from. It straight up doesn't. And so when we come on orders of priority of where I want my vendors focusing, I want them focusing first on the product, then on support, then on engineering, and last on sales. when these organizations become retail organizations, when they become consumer-based organizations, you want to know what the priorities are? The exact opposite. It starts with sales, then it's sales engineering, then it's support, and the very last thing that gets attention is actually developing the product itself. And I know you've seen this. And so my thing is, part of the model works. Part of the model is protectionism, to protect something that's old, that's there. I would still like to see more for the easy stuff, consumption-based stuff. You had brought up an example, like you want to go buy another license for iOS XE for a router, or you want to buy a bandwidth, a throughput license. You should not need to talk to an SE about that. Like, you should be able to go to a website, put a credit card in, and be done. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. If you're buying a data center networking fabric, you probably should have some engineering conversations with the VAR and with the OEM to make sure you're making the right decisions, because there are so many variables that unless you've spent, 6 months to a year studying this product and all of the nuances of what it can do, there are things that you don't know about, and bringing that knowledge in is valuable.
See, I don't disagree with your statement, but in the example that you brought up was something that a short discussion we had before the stream was, why can't I treat buying hardware and appliances like we buy games off Steam? Or, I use the example of like buying the Windows OS. I can go online and put in my credit card and buy the Windows OS. Now, I don't know everything about the Windows OS. Okay, I don't know everything about how it interacts with the hardware that I'm putting it on, but I know that's the product I need. I know that's the direction I'm going in. I know enough about it to make this work and to install that on here, and that's an operating system. Now, most of the time, we're talking about just applications. We're talking about just running applications. I have to buy applications from a reseller and a sales engineer and a this and a that. Well, I'm running it on an operating system, which is it should be far more complicated. I had no problem spending $100 to get that on, but no, I got to spend the $8,000 to buy your piece of software and then the $14,000 in licensing. Yeah, I have a big problem with this, and the fact that I can't buy it directly from the vendor, that I have to go through a reseller. And in order, it's not just going to the reseller. Like I said, I don't just go to a VAR's website and just hit the download button and put in my credit card there. No, I got to massage the damn sales engineer and the account manager and all these people. I think that part is absolutely maddening to me. I want to get closer to the product. I want to get closer to what I want. You guys remember like old video game stores that used to sell computer software? You used to be able to go there and just buy a box of software. I didn't have to ask anybody about anything I was buying. I would just pick up the box of software and take it home. Now, when you said, well, if you're buying a data center fabric, there's a lot that goes into it. Wait a second. No one buys a data center fabric, right? They buy appliances and they build a fabric out of it. I mean, you don't buy the fabric. There are nuances. But there's nuances in everything that you purchase. There's nuances in every piece of IT out there. So it's not exclusive to networking. So my point is, like, if sales engineers are necessary, then why aren't they everywhere? Why aren't they doing everything? But they're really stopping me from getting networking done. I think they are slowing the process of progress. I get the merit, I guess. They want to be able to bring value. One of the things that you had mentioned earlier is that they bring value, right? They bring value by having worked with multiple vendors and worked with multiple different clients to have seen different architectures, different designs, different problems. They're able to maybe be a step ahead and anticipate problems, and that's all fine and dandy in theory. And I say in theory because a lot of times these resellers are partnered with single vendors, non-competitive vendors. They have the best deal with vendor A and they don't sell vendor B. So if I want to consider something else, I need to go to another reseller to maybe try and get that other product. I'm not happy about it, Jordan. I don't have anything nice to say about it. I mean,
no, I mean, your experience is common.
They have value.
Well, I mean, no, the thing is like, I think that what you're experiencing is your VARs and the ones that you've worked with have not been good on the value added side. I will say, being on the inside and kind of seeing how the sausage is made, there are a lot of incentives for that exact model that you just talked about. And that is partner with a single vendor, because that vendor, whoever the primary vendor is, because there's always a primary vendor. Let's just be honest. There's always somebody who's the one that you go in with unless there's a reason not to, even if you're a multi-vendor shop. That vendor doesn't like it when their partner goes in and proposes somebody else, and they raise a stink and they cause problems and they do whatever. I've gotten my hand slapped a couple of times with Network Collective because I've said things that have made a vendor of one of my VARs or whoever I worked with unhappy because I wasn't singing their praises. And in that, in that, there's a perverse motivation, right? There's a motivation. Like I talked about the spectrum, this idea of the value add needs to be more focused on the customer than on the OEM. And it often is in the wrong direction. It often goes to where the VAR is preferring to maintain the relationship with the OEM, because when you think about the financial side on the back end, there are many, many deals like yours, and upsetting them over this one deal is probably not worth it. That's the motivation. You need to find somebody with some integrity. And that's the challenge. The challenge is you're dealing with organizations that are sales organizations, and you're trying to find salespeople with integrity. They exist. I've worked with them. They're good. They're amazing. And it's perfect when you find the right person and you can work with them and build that partnership and that relationship. The model works, but it requires everybody working to the correct motivations, which is often hard to do. And most customers do not understand what those motivations are, because the OEMs and somewhat the VARs work very hard to keep those motivations secret. They don't talk about them. They don't want to talk about, what gets promoted on the back end. Because oftentimes, when you have someone who is maybe not partnering with you well, someone who is motivated for their own motivations, their own bonuses, there are particular products that get pushed from OEMs that they have bonuses that get tied to the promotion of that product that don't go to the company that sells it, that go to the actual account manager. Like they're reaching their fingers into the company to promote particular account managers to do particular things. I think that's a little messed up. And so
a little,
okay, it's very messed up. So for me, like where I'm at now, one of the things I love, and not to just sit here and, toot the horn of Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology doesn't do that. Like, we don't do individual account manager bonuses for selling particular products, because they understand that motivation's not a good one. And they've taken a stand. They've said, no, that's not good, because from an integrity perspective, we want to go in and be leaning more towards the customer. That's their point. And so the model does exist. I'm not saying the whole system isn't completely jacked up, because it is. I'm not even saying that the majority is right, because it's not. But there are, if you do your homework and you work to find the right people, you can find that the model itself is not the problem, so long as you find the right people in the chain and the process. And then when those right people are there, I have seen relationships where you get exactly what you're talking about. The account manager and the SE knows you, knows your competence, knows what you do within your organization, and they sign off on a piece of paper when you put it in order. They don't get in your way. And then when they see something that says, wait, we're not sure that you know everything, can we have a quick conversation about this? It starts with a 15-minute phone call. Do you know about X, Y, and Z? Okay, you know about X, Y, and Z? Okay, you're good. And that's it. Like, we're not going to push it anymore. Like, the relationship can work, but you have to find the right people. And that's really what I'm saying. So I agree 100%. I've sat on the other side too. I've sat on the customer side, and I'm right there with you. I wish it was a more consumer model, because the people have broken it, which makes it frustrating. But when the people don't stand in the way, it's not bad. And so you just got to find the right people.
So what I want to end this discussion on is not just about my disgust of process. It's also my disgust of not being able to get a price. nearly any time I've worked either with a vendor that has this sales structure or with a reseller that has this sales structure, when you ask for the price of something, they all of a sudden they can't give you a price. Like what do you mean a price? Well, we're going to have to run some numbers. Run what numbers? How much does it cost? This can't be that hard. Put a price tag on it, and then that's what it costs. Oh, well, how many windows do you guys have in your headquarters? Well, I don't know. Why does that matter? Well, we need to calculate against an arbitrary number in your business. I mean, they want some sort of arbitrary thing to calculate your pricing model or what pricing bracket you're in. I just want the price. And again, this kind of goes back to I just want to be able to buy the software from your website. But they can't do that because they can't put a price on it. And one of the things is I've seen some of the purchase orders and the negotiated prices that have come through for different projects, different customers, different vendors. And I'm like, how can you even sell at these prices? These are prices that are absolutely unheard of. Some are high, some are low, some are lower than the lowest person could ever buy this from. It's like they're getting them stolen. You know what I mean? How can they even make money at these things? So prices for the products that you buy are all over the map, and they're completely customer dependent. And I realize this is a capitalist society, and I support it. We're all in this to make money. That's why we do these things. That's why I go to work every day, is to make money. But there needs to be a price tag on some of these things. It can't vary just by what the sales engineer needs to make that month. He's got to hit his target, so he's going to shoot this number over at me. What does the product cost? That's what I want to pay. You know what I mean? If you can just be upfront with me. And that's my point, is a lot of times that will be one of my questions in a meeting. When I'm meeting with a vendor or a reseller, I'll say, well, how much does this cost? Oh, well, this model? Yeah, that model. Oh, well, this model is actually so now it's a model that doesn't even exist. They don't have a price tag on it. It's been specially built just for this demo, and we'll have to get you in touch with a sales engineer and an account manager to get you pricing. Why? Why don't you just have a number? If someone wanted to give you cash right now for that, what would that number be? And I just don't understand why the IT buying process, whether it's products or services, has to be this way. Why can't you just give me a price? And that's kind of where we probably should have led in with that. That's kind of where a lot of this stems from, is trying to understand the pricing for IT products and IT services is absolutely maddening, especially when the reseller is involved, because then there's a bunch of margins that need to be juggled, and there's a bunch of sales that need to be made per month, and capital needs to be made. It's absolutely maddening. And when you actually see the receipt at the end of the day, when you actually see it on the thing, we paid how much for that? Really? And then you see that the 3-year license and support cost as much as the appliance. I'm paying that much for them to do nothing? Really? It's just, it's absolutely frustrating to me. I would rather treat a lot of this stuff like a retail store. I want to go in, I want to try on a couple of shirts, and then I'm going to buy the one that I like. I'm going to take it out of here. And I just want the same kind of thing for networking. I want to be able to see a price up front. I want to be able to know that the product is there, and that I don't have to go through a bunch of BS to get it. When you're at the retail store and someone walks up to you and they're like, "Sir, do you need help?" And you're like, "No, thanks, I got it. I've done this before." They're like, "All right, sir, take care. Have a good day." That's what I want out of networking. That's what I want. Because when I need help with something, I go, "Excuse me, miss. Excuse me. I need help with these. I don't understand these t-shirts. Can you help me understand these t-shirts?" "Oh, sure. Let me explain them to you. There's V-necks, there's halter tops, there's this, there's that, So then I bring in the expert, someone who's going to drop knowledge on me. But otherwise, just let me run in, get what I need, and run out.
So I've got 2 points. The pricing point, I see prices on this stuff and it makes my head explode. It's shocking how expensive it is. But when you start looking at it within the context of the value that it provides your business, there's a reason why people pay the price. And so, technology does really drive business. How much is your business impacted by not having that particular piece of technology? And that the answer to that question is going to drive whatever the value of that thing is. And so it's not a retail operation. It's never going to be a retail operation. And I understand the frustration. But like, it's just not going to be the way that it works. So I think that, I think that, you know, when you say that, there's almost always a list price. The question is, how much overinflated is that list price from what I'm actually going to pay? Right. And
yeah,
so, like,
and look, I'm not talking about the prices are being so high that we can't afford them. I've seen prices lower than like the vendor can make the product.
Yes, but there's
like,
motivation.
How does that
to
even
this
happen?
Well, the reason why is
getting stolen goods. Like,
no,
where are they coming from?
Sometimes the vendor wants a foot in the door. Sometimes it's worth selling at a loss, because to have the 10-year relationship where I'm making 5% on every sale or whatever it is worth losing 20% on the first one. Like because you get that money back in your first year, and then you get everything beyond that. And so like there's a whole model here, because the thing is it is competitive, which means that you can go to multiple people, and even that system is a little messed up. But the idea being that, you know, when you go buy Cisco kit, whatever it is, you can have your VAR, but you can also go to, you know, 7 other VARs. It's your choice. You choose who you go to get that pricing. And Cisco plays this game where, unless you exert a preference, they don't care who you buy it through. Right? Like, they're not there with, like, they don't care if you buy it through VAR A or VAR B or VAR C. It doesn't matter to them. Right? So, yeah. You know, at the end of the day, like, that competition should work in your favor. Having people compete for your business is good. It does make the pricing a little bit variable. But variable in this case is good. It's like working 2 car dealerships against each other. All of a sudden, the things that weren't flexible become flexible because someone else gave you a better price, right? So I mean, like, that's and again, that's a whole nuanced conversation, and not what I want to go down right now.
You know what? I just wanted to actually just like thank everybody and apologize at the same time. I don't intend to like change the model of IT sales and service. I realize that one pitiful man's complaining is not going to do that. I was just absolutely so frustrated, and it started bringing up in my head every time I've had sales meetings that just went through this. They can't give me a price. I have to go through layers of song and dance to get something, and it just started bringing up all these feelings, and Jordan and I were just riffing on it before the stream. So I just want to thank everybody for staying with us. I'm not trying to change the world. I would love to foster a more deeper a conversation to understand this model if anyone wants to agree or disagree. But just thank you for listening to my bitching for
I think there's more people who are agreeing with you than agreeing with me. I think, like everything in this industry, the answer is it depends, right? Like, the system is not a good system. It's not as bad as some people make it out to be either. And ultimately, just like every other thing in technology, it comes back to the people, right? You can find the right people to be in your corner. You can be successful. You find the wrong people, and it's going to mess everything up. And so, like, that's kind of where I think we're coming from. Although I do think it's probably time to move on.
Yes.
So one of the things that we wanted to do with this particular time, this stream, is we wanted to bring things like demos and products and to kind of like see what people are doing. So obviously we've been successful with the podcast for, well, we're approaching 4 years now, but what we've missed from a medium perspective is it's very hard to communicate some of these topics in a audio only format. And so starting the live stream, a lot of what we wanted to start is the ability to bring demos and examples and things to the live stream that are interesting. And last week we got a demonstration from Tony on some of the work he's doing with his visibility and monitoring of his network that I think meets or exceeds what most enterprises are doing for his home personal network, which was really, really interesting. And that was cool. And this week we wanted to talk to and show you a bit about Elastiflow, which is this really great tool. But here's the problem. The developer that we wanted to chat with, the lead guy, the only guy up until recently, he lives in Germany. So 8 p.m. Eastern does not really work well for him for recording it. So what we did is we actually, a couple days ago, we sat down and recorded a demo of the product. It's really quite impressive. And so, of course, like all things that we do, we started out with the idea that would be, you know, a short, concise, you know, 15 to 30 minutes, and it turned into 50 minutes. So what we have today is as a cut down version of that, of that demo, and we're gonna play it. It's live to tape, I think is what they call that. It was live at the time, but you're seeing a recording of when it happened. We're gonna back out to the chat and we'll watch it with you, and we're gonna play it here. But what we're gonna do then is we're gonna release the full version of this. So if this was interesting and piqued your interest into Elastiflow, we won't bore you with the whole 55-minute plus conversation here. But what we will do is we will release the whole uncut, unedited version on the YouTube channel in the next few days. And so we're gonna do that here in just a second. But I did want to say, don't stick around, because there's naked hardware. We're naked hardware. We've got those prizes, and we got a couple other things we want to chat about afterwards. So we're going to kick this off, and Tony and I are going to drop out into the chat and interact with you there. If anyone
wants to meet me over on Network Collective Twitch, I'm chatting over there.
Are you?
By myself.
By yourself. I was going to say, nobody knows that we're on Twitch, but we are, because we started it up. We're going to have to find some way to promote ourselves there.
Yeah.
Tony's all by himself over there. What are you saying? Are you giving yourself high fives? Like,
pretty much.
Pretty much. All right. So I'm gonna kick this off, and we'll be back as soon as it's done.
Hi, Rob. First of all, thanks for joining us on this. We're pre-recording this because of a little time zone difference, but I want to introduce Rob Cowart to everybody. First of all, I am a huge fan of yours, but specifically your products. I've personally used Elastiflow, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. So I have a little bit of hands-on experience, but I'm missing a couple of elements on how this came to be. So I'd love to start off by hearing a little bit about you. Give us an intro to your background, and then a little bit of intro to Elastiflow and how this came to be.
Okay, great. Well, first off, let me just say thanks for the few kind words. Always good to talk to users of the solution. And of course, always good to hear when people appreciate the thing that you've poured so much time into. It's kind of an interesting story. I guess myself, I would probably go back somewhere around the mid to late 90s. I was actually got started in software working around like backup software, all kinds of hierarchical storage management and those type of things. I was working at Seagate Software, and they had bought a company called NetLabs, which had this product Nerve Center that did S&MP polling and event correlation type of things. And that was really my transition into network management. Spent some time working at Micromuse. That was really a great organization I worked for. I still miss them. I have a great relationship with that whole team still. And there had done some of my first community kind of focused projects around stuff I did with S&MP traps and those type of data sources. And then we got bought by IBM, hung out there for a while, got my kids through school, and then set out for another part of my career, ended up working at Sev1 that had a performance management solution. And that really began the transition to what today is Elastiflow and a lot of other projects that I've been involved in. And that was definitely around 2013, I would say. I distinctly remember I was in Hong Kong doing some projects for Telstra Global, and they would come over and say, hey, we're playing around with this big data lake thing, and we just like a feed of your data, so we have some stuff to play around with. And then you kind of fast forward 3 years later, and we literally heard people saying, hey, we're buying you guys for collection, and that's it. And then we're putting all of our data in this other data platform for analytics and visualization and what have you. And so when you hear the story enough, you start to think, man, something's really changing here in the market. And if I want to continue to be relevant, I better figure out what it is and see where the value is, and perhaps get a little more involved there myself. So in the course of playing around with that, one of the first projects I made was this little tool to collect some NetFlow data that I really just made for myself. And this is going back about 3.5 years ago now. And I made that first commit onto that GitHub project of Elastiflow. And since then, I can distinctly remember I was actually going to be talking in an event in Switzerland, and my wife had traveled with me, and we're sitting there in the hotel room, and I'm looking at my phone going like, man, I got like 23 stars in the last day and a half. And just thinking like, interesting. Well, I wonder what happened there. And it just kind of started taking off. And I think we're approaching about 2,000 stars in the repository. I at one point realized the logo that is on the dashboard used to be served off my web server. I one time realized, oh man, I can look at my web logs and understand a lot of organizations that are using it. And it turned out to be some fairly large ones and fairly significant organizations. That's where I really started to realize the spread. I estimate now the solution probably has somewhere between 30 to 35,000 users around the world, including some relatively big names. And it's just kind of taken off. It still kind of blows my mind to this day. I mean, essentially that solution's also helped pay my bills for a number of years now with various types of projects and things. And it's really also reached a point now today where it's ready to transition, I think, into that next phase. And I'll share a little bit about that as we go through the conversation. So.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's so important. You kind of talked about a little bit is for a very long time. And even today, everyone cares about the data. Everyone wants to collect all the data. Right. But we as humans aren't good at looking at data. We're not good at looking at raw data. And that's one of the things why I love Elastiflow so much is we're human beings. We're animals. We're visual. We operate entirely on our senses. And that's one of the things about your product is you have some of the prettiest dashboards to visualize network data, specifically network data. And in fact, a lot of the things that I did on last week's stream, that I did with Graylog, I actually, based and was influenced by a lot of the things that you've done in Elastiflow. So having that visualization is such a key piece for humans to understand data. And I think you've done a beautiful job in doing that with your projects.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I oftentimes say in these projects, though, that when I think about the time that goes into creating such a thing, probably 3% is the data store. I mean, this is my personal opinion. People could debate this or not, but I kind of feel like data stores are a commodity now. You want a search engine, get Splunk, get Elastic. You want a document store, get MongoDB. You want a time series database, you got TimescaleDB or Influx. It's kind of like they're all out there, right? But a database on its own doesn't provide insight or information. And so
exactly.
Then you got the analytics part, whether it's visual or machine-driven analytics. That's probably 7% of the work of those type of projects. And then you have, though, to make all of that work, it's where's the data? How do I get it? How do I parse it, transform it, enrich it, and turn it into something? I talk a lot about, when I talk about what the real difference of Elastiflow is, one of the things I talk about is this translation from machine type information to human consumable information. Some of us in the network world, we know that, IP protocol 6 is TCP and 17 is UDP, but do you know what 132 is?
Wait. No, I don't. I'm thinking.
Anyway.
Okay, thank you.
But the point being is, like, even those of us that are in it every day cannot keep all of this stuff in our head. And so it's not enough to just do some raw parsing of the information and throw it in a data store. You do have to pay a lot of attention to understanding what's the use case, how do people want to use this, and then how do I transform that into a form that allows me to present them that context in an easy to understand way. So the focus on the user experience, is still really important regardless of the technology. So
I mean, that's everything. I mean, like at the end of the day, that's everything. I mean, so like when you put out those ratios, that feels right to me, because if it was as simple as having the data or storing the data, we would all just be using log collection. Like, I think that's where we all start, right? It's just logs. But then you start realizing that, oh, wait a minute, when I'm collecting logs from this many devices, or, looking at logs for all these different services, it just becomes non-consumable. And so spending time in parsing that data is the key part. It is what makes a tool valuable or not, because collecting the data, like you said, like databases have been around for a long time. We can drop data wherever we want to. Right. So it is, so I guess I kind of used to dismiss interfaces, right? Like the data is what's important. I think the longer I do this, the more I recognize how important it is for the representation of the data. Like, what is it that you see? Are you actually seeing stuff that gives you actionable data? Are you actually seeing something that gives you something that you can, it's not just consume and understand, but does it tell you what needs to be done? That's why where a tool like yours, steps in and really does help in giving us a solid visualization of what is happening, and then, how we might need to adjust to whatever's going on.
So Rod, without any further ado, I want you to dive in and give us a demo. Are there any cool dashboards? Are there any cool functionality? Are there any cool processes that you'd like to start off with before we get to like the behind the scenes and the deep dive?
Sure. So what I have over here is I have the Elastiflow dashboards. This right here at the beginning is the overview. Now, this is based on the Elastic Stack, and which is a search engine. So one of the real keys to understanding how to best use this is to think about exploration of my data. So I'm looking for those conditions of interest out of the information that's presented to me. And because it's a search engine, the way that you tend to navigate and drill down is by selecting things to filter on. And so I tried to start right at the beginning to give a bit of an overview, and also to then allow you to already begin to start drilling down into some potential things that might be of interest. Like if we look at these two things over on the right-hand side, one of the things that I do is I actually scrape a bunch of external open source intelligence sources. Again, normalize that data into some common taxonomy to tag public IP addresses about their reputation, and that allows you here just by saying, okay, there's a lot of things that are known for accessing SSH or doing brute force type stuff, and then I have up here at the top TCP flags, and you might say, well, why do I really care about TCP flags? Well, they can be really interesting. Like, when I establish that three-way handshake in TCP, that's where I get a SYN. So if I want to know maybe about reconnaissance activity, I might just go ahead and click right away on that SYN, and that's going to set this filter up here. And maybe we'll click another one. So maybe I don't want things that are ACT, because after the SYN comes an ACT, so I can exclude that. And now I can start to look at things that, where I want to drill in, like maybe I want to look at reconnaissance of things that weren't necessarily connected, or I do want to know about things that I believe there was a good connection, then I can leave that ACT flag in there. Fortunately, a lot of the bad reputations dropped away when I added that ACK, and I'm looking at looking more only at the established type things. But I could potentially even look at, I don't know, let's just grab a bot here. This is kind of live data, so I'm never quite 100% sure what I'm going to see. But here we can see, again, there were a number of things. Okay, these look like some type of bots, search engine crawlers, or what have you, which explains the reputation of bot and why those connections were actually established. This happens to be a web server that I happen to have, so that's probably not a big surprise there. I'm not too concerned about those type of things. But what I might be more concerned about would say, for example, that I start looking at ACT things that have actually reached inside my environment, and maybe like a database connection type of stuff that could be far more concerning if I was to discover those type of things. And so just being able to drill down with a few simple mouse clicks to set a few filters and find conditions of interest, that's really the power of this. And in reality, also, anything that you can click on and set filters to look for conditions, there are tools out there, in addition to those provided with the commercial versions of the Elastic Stack. There's also things like ElastAlert and other type tools that you can actually use then to automate those searches and allow you to alert on those same conditions that you found in the UI by clicking around. So part of this with the reputation stuff, it's kind of interesting to me, because I oftentimes say that Elastiflow really dragged me into the security management space. There's a handful of use cases that flow data gets used for. Certainly the two most common are performance management and security management. And when I made Elastiflow, I thought really that probably everyone's going to be using this for performance management primarily. And I was quite surprised to find out that just based on the interactions I've had with, a pretty good segment of the community, that probably 2/3 of them are using it primarily for security, with performance management use cases being secondary. So, and because of that, there's a lot of things I've started to develop in that direction of security management. One of the other things you can do once you have, just a little bit of extra information. I tagged with that journal, with that IP reputation data that I had enriched all of the flow records with. And once you do that, you can also start to get a lot more different perspectives by just adding that one little piece of information. What the threat dashboards are really designed to do is to allow you to quickly identify at-risk systems based off of that any traffic with these external IPs that have a poor reputation. And so there's a few different categories that are set up here. For example, public threats. Public threats would be things that the client side of the connection, and we could have a long talk just about source destination versus client server. I think so many solutions, this would be my big critique on a lot of the stuff Elastic's been up to lately, is that all they do is source destination. They don't have this client server perspective on things. But a public threat would be the client side is a public IP, has a poor reputation, and it is reaching into or attempting to reach into my private assets. And so that's what we see here. And one of the things we can do, this is actually a little hint at a coming partnership for the future, is that we've recently started with this jump out to Risk IQ. So Risk IQ is a group that is a company that Elastiflow is entering into a formal relationship with around threat intelligence. So in the future, instead of myself actually going in and drilling or scraping the internet for various sources, we're going to have a much higher quality feed that is integrated with this next generation of Elastiflow that is about to surface, and we'll have direct integrations not only with from jumping into their dashboards, but it's also going to include things like you being able to, if you've so enabled this, view analysis of your flow data in the Risk IQ user interface, as well as enrich your flow records with threat intelligence information from Risk IQ. So we're really excited about how that partnership could actually grow that entire use case. But nonetheless, even just within Elastiflow itself and the reputation information we have, obviously I just have a small environment, so I don't have a lot of high-risk clients or servers. But we leverage that information and our understanding of the directionality of traffic to help identify things that you might want to be concerned about.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really cool things that I've seen from your dashboards from Elastiflow is, I haven't seen all the products that are out there, but it's one of the ones that really has that directionality based on session instead of packet direction. And I think that's super, super helpful in understanding your own environment.
Yeah. I think, like I said, I think that perspective really gets lost in that, most flow record sources are unidirectional. So, the easiest example everyone understands is my web browser I make a request to a website, I'm the source, it's the destination. It sends me a response, it's the source, I'm the destination. And those are unidirectional because there's no guarantee that the path back is going to be the same path the original packet took, the request took. So, in general, flow records are always going to be a unidirectional representation. However, what I really care about in many cases is the fact that my browser is the client and the web server is the server. Well, you might say, well, what does that matter to have that perspective? And think of something like a port scan. If I want to detect a port scan, I might have an algorithm that says something. And by the way, part of what the next generation of Elastiflow will do is provide, say you're a customer of Elastic and you have their commercial machine learning features. We've got about 36 machine learning jobs that we give you that you just import in, and it'll do some of this analytics for you. But one of them would be detecting like low and slow port scans. And one of the ways you do that is you do some anomaly detection where you would say, I'm looking at all of the client side connections, and I'm determining based off all of the different clients accessing a particular server, is there any one that's accessing an abnormally or unusually high number of ports? And you could look at that over longer periods of time to determine what the total number of ports is. Well, you might say, well, can't I do that with source destination? Well, no, you can't, because every time I try to make that connection, what's going to happen on the client side? Going to open up a different source port. So the answer back is going to be to a different destination port because the source port of the request was different. And that means if I'm only looking at source destination, I could get lots of false positives because the response could begin to look like a port scan because it's just responding to a lot of different open source ports. I hope that kind of made sense when I explained that. But so if I don't consider the client server relationship and only look at the source destination, there are a lot of security relevant detections that I'm not going to be able to do. And that's unfortunately what I see a lot in some of the other projects out there. And I really do apologize. I don't intend to attack anybody's work or what have you. I'm just trying to talk as a network guy. By not trying to bring in that client server context, a lot of these solutions are going to fall short of what they're trying to promise of being able to give you really detailed security relevant information.
I think that's a really important distinction. Yeah, I don't think I don't take that as like kind of being negative about other products, but your example that you just gave was critically important. The idea of, how do we tell that a particular client is accessing a particular server on a bunch of different ports over time? Your example is exactly right. When you switch that source destination relationship, it's really hard to tie that together. Whereas if you look at it from more of a connection oriented or a flow oriented look, the data is different, right? The data is different and more valuable. And so I completely get that. That's there. I do want to kind of give you a softball here. You keep mentioning about to come out or the version that's about to. So like, obviously the tool that we're seeing here is the current tool. It sounds like there's some changes on the horizon, right?
There are definitely changes on the horizon. You guys are getting the preview outside of a handful of customers and partners that know about this already. This is definitely the first that I've told anyone else about this. Elastiflow is actually starting next week. We will be out public, though our website's going to go live on Monday. And we're also going to announce the beta of the next generation of Elastiflow. So, the basis of building Elastiflow originally on the Elastic stack, I think, was sound at the time to explore the use cases. And Logstash was useful to learn and understand the things that were important in such a solution. However, Logstash has a lot of limitations, and in particular for flow. So, for example, it has no way to properly manage NetFlow v9 and IPFix templates. So, unfortunately, Logstash, in the way that it implements codecs, does not have all those pieces of information available to it at the time the data is processed by the codec. So, one of the problems that a lot of users had is, I have like a Cisco ASA that's sending flow records to, and we'll just say flow set ID 256, right? 256. And then I have a Juniper that's also sending template 256, but their template's different than the other one. And depending whose template got there first, the other one's flows might be decoded by the wrong template, and basically you just end up with gobbledygook where it totally makes no sense whatsoever. And so that was one issue. Then there's various types of additional parsing and enrichment that I would have liked to have done that eventually just become really heavy inside of Logstash. I mean, it's a great flexible tool. I still think it's great for a lot of log processing use cases, but it was becoming a real limiting factor. And then you have the performance side of it. When I start to talk to organizations, I mean, telcos is the best example, where you might have some core router at a telco that's literally spitting out just the one device, 150, 200,000 flows a second. Well, unfortunately, Logstash does not have the scalability to be able to handle those type of data rates. And so what was clear is that a complete rewrite from scratch was necessary. I went through every, I won't say every, but probably close to every repository or project related to Flow on GitHub, and in the end decided, I don't like any of these as a starting point. I'm just going to write my own from scratch. And started about a year and a half ago. Unfortunately, I have to try to make a living in between bouts of developing. And so it's taken a while, but we are actually, and I'll show you a little bit of data and stuff here in a second, but this all new collector, written in Go, take advantage of concurrency. I would say that on a single server, the Logstash-based version of Elastiflow, even on really powerful servers, because it doesn't scale particularly well vertically, would probably top out around 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 flows a second on a single server. With the new collector on the box back here over my shoulder, 16 cores, 128 gig of RAM. I mean, it's not a terrible box. It's a pretty good box. I'm achieving on a single server, though, about 60,000 flows per second with the new solution. So, and we have plans for what we call our Extreme Scale Edition, where we'll take apart the different components of this new collector, wrap it around something like an Apache Kafka, and we have goals to hit 1 million flows a second. Yeah, and so that's the direction it's going, and I feel like I'm hoping I'm going to do a good job of continuing to serve the community around the whole space of network management, but also being able to grow the solution and bring in other technologies, because I don't just want to be the Flow guys. I really feel like when you look at the open source world as a whole, there is no good network is so ignored. And so those are the types of areas we'd love to start investing our time in next, streaming telemetry and the like. And so that's some of our thoughts for the future and where we want to invest time and energy into.
So before we had jumped on this call, we had asked the Network Collective Slack, is there anything specifically that they wanted to know about Elastiflow? And there were a couple of questions came in. The one that I think that stood out to me was integration. And so you said that the tool is primarily being used as a security tool. At least you're finding that that's kind of the heavy use, not necessarily just from a networking perspective. And in the security world, there's a lot of like point tools that integrate with other tools. It's kind of the MO is how do you start integrating with other pieces? And so what does that look like from an Elastiflow perspective? And, is that something that you guys are considering about how to get data in and out, how to integrate with other pieces?
So let's see how to answer that. Probably the best way to describe where we see our role in the future is that I go back to the split of 3% data store, 7% analytics, 90% getting the data right. And it only makes sense if 90% of the work's getting the data right. That's where we can provide, 90% of the value. And we want to do that in a turnkey way, or as turnkey as possible. So what we want to do is we want to be the collector, for lack of a better word, of choice for all of your network telemetry data, be it flows, SNMP traps, model-driven telemetry from Cisco, et cetera, what have you. I don't know how much time and effort we're going to put into logs, maybe somewhere way out into the future. There's just so many people doing logs. I don't feel like we would, we could add more value more quickly focusing on the other sources. But being able to collect all of that network-related telemetry and then allow you to put it in whichever data platform that you choose. Right now, as our history is around Elasticsearch, but we have, I will actually, let me bring up one particular slide that maybe tells us a little bit better, right? I don't know if you could share that one.
Yeah,
I thought I'd bring it, right? The idea is you're going to have one thing that's bringing in all this telemetry, and it's doing all the work of parsing, formatting, normalizing, really important. I can show some examples here in a second from some data from the new collector. And then saying, look, wherever you want to put it in Elasticsearch, put it in Splunk. There's other data platforms. I really think ClickHouse actually has a lot of promise. And the Grafana team's also doing some really good work as well that, and using some of those technologies together, I think has a lot of promise, especially at bigger scales. And then just like we've done historically with Elastiflow by providing you dashboards and other things that you just import and instantly it's as if you're sitting in front of a purpose-built Flow application. We want to do that for all of those other data sources for these other platforms as well. So it's not just about collecting the data, but also giving you what you need to instantly get the advantage of it in the platform you have. And that involves, though, taking advantage of a lot of the features that those different solutions. I mean, for example, both Splunk and Elasticsearch have their own machine learning engines. We want to provide you jobs out of the box that you just load into their engine, and it automatically works with our data. As an example. And so those are the type of ways we think about integrating with other systems is by being primarily a data source, but also helping provide the other artifacts necessary to instantly take advantage of the data. Is that kind of what you think the question is?
Yeah, that was the question. I think that ultimately the question is, no one has a single tool and no single tool is going to handle it all. And so the question is, where does this fit into the ecosystem of tools that we have, within our network? How can we make sure that that we're not having to collect the data 7 different places and have it processed uniquely? You mentioned that you want to be the collector of choice and then spread that data around, and that's where you want to fit in the network, and that makes sense. We're kind of coming up towards the back end here. You said you wanted to show us a couple of things from the beta release that's coming. We should probably should get to that if you want to demo a bit here.
Sure. So I don't we're literally in the middle of building out new dashboards. One of the things we've done is actually modified the schema that we're using, and so that's going to mean we're going to have to remake a lot of the dashboards and all that type of stuff. Schemas are something that I feel is really important. This kind of comes back to the telemetry conversation as well, and being able to take different sources. What I don't think that users want is I don't think users want to have one screen they look at for Cisco, another screen they look at for Juniper, another they look at for Fortinet, for example.
I'd agree with that.
I think they want one screen that has everything. And so in order to do that, you do need to normalize the data. Now, the new collector is going to support on day one over 6,000 different information elements. So part of the reason this collector has taken so long is to normalize 6,000 different information elements is just a big bunch of work to sit down and figure out which ones have the same type of data or close enough that I could transform it and turn one into the other and those type of things. And so, but I wanted to share a little bit about just looking at the raw data. There's already plenty of things that you can see. Here's some records that are from the Cisco SD-WAN solutions. And one of the things that you see already in these records, and again, this comes back to things that were impossible with Logstash. Logstash had no clue of what's called option templates. So in Flow, devices that support Flow can send option templates, which are basically like a dictionary of metadata about the other information they're going to send you. And so they don't want to send all the detail with every single record. That's not very efficient. So they send, for example, in this case, you get a bunch of different application attributes that are all really related to this application ID. So Cisco sends most of this information in option templates ahead of time. And then when you get the raw data, you can match it up to those templates. This is something we can handle very well in the new collector that was impossible before with Logstash. So we're already increasing the richness of the information that we can provide that simply was not possible previously. And then I mentioned the different vendor support as well. So, like in addition to Cisco, you can see this data here came from VeloCloud. Some of the VeloCloud, when you see us call out fields separately for a particular vendor, that's kind of a little bit more the direction of their secret sauce, where we can, we do try to normalize things into this, into our schema that we have. While I mentioned schema, I didn't think to bring this window up, but when I mentioned schema, let me jump over to my GitHub real quick. There is a repository. It's still a bit of a work in progress, but it's kind of something near and dear to my heart. And I'm even starting to talk to a few other organizations about maybe jumping on board here. But it's kind of an approach to some real world schemas. I mean, there's like 101 schemas out there, right? And unfortunately, a lot of them are very specific to certain solutions. So I like to call this a real world schema, and where I've begun to document out things for different data types related to networks, network traffic, and even then, in addition to documentation, you want your data stream to be consumable. So you take that same stuff and you produce like JSON schema documents so that other applications that understand JSON schema can then easily then ingest your data. Maybe in the future we'll do things like Avro schemas and other type protobuf or those type of things. That repository, by the way, is public, and that's kind of if I had my dream, it is that we'll have a whole community around that. In fact, it's called Codex, Community for Open Data and Event Exchange. I want all of these platforms to be able to talk to each other in a really simple way and exchange information, right? And so, I'd love for, if you're passionate about those things, I'd love for you to get in there and pick apart my stuff and tell me how some of it stinks. And, because I know I don't have a monopoly on good ideas.
Just want to point people in the right direction, right? Your Twitter handles there on the screen, robcoward_.com, or not _.com. So people can find you there, and I imagine you will, engage in conversation around this there. You said elastiflow.com.
Correct.
Live. Yep. And then the new beta.
Twitter. Yeah.
Yep. And then
Elastiflow Twitter. Yep.
At Elastiflow on Twitter, and then and then just that last project you were talking about, the Codex on GitHub. And so if you're interested in normalizing network data and feel like you can make some contributions, go to GitHub, check out Codex, and get involved. I'm pointing at you, Tony. Yeah, just like you're pointing at yourself.
I know.
All right. Well, thanks again, Rob. And hopefully we'll have you on sometime in the future, and we'll talk about what's next.
I just want to say thanks for having me. And, I discovered you guys recently sort of on Twitter, by chance, and watched a couple of the videos. I just want to say I think you guys are doing a great service for the community around networking and stuff.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our automation didn't kick.
That's okay. We're back. And we're back. Yep.
That's the first. The first time.
It was like it was the Wayne's World moment, It was. And we're back.
that was the first time that one of my automations didn't do what I wanted it to do. Oh boy. So we're back. So that was Elastiflow. Hopefully you guys found that valuable, and I would love to hear some feedback from those watching. Both, was that demo valuable? Would you like to see more stuff like that? Obviously, keeping in context that we'd like to do those live far more than pre-recorded if possible.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But I'd like to do that. And if so, what do you want to see? And so, some of the things that we do here, here's my bias. I don't want my show to or our channel Network Collective to be all about vendors, right? Like that's not what I'm going after. But there's a lot of cool tools out there. I think there's a lot of like open source stuff that maybe not get the visibility that's out there. Or if there really is like a big desire to see a paid for product, that's commercially viable or whatever, like we can do that too. So I don't want to to limit it to just open source stuff, but I don't want to be all ads, all marketing all the time. And so trying to find a balance between those things. So speaking of ads, Tony, we have something coming up next week and I think we want to talk about. So next, is that next week? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah,
what's the date? Is that next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday. It's the 23rd, December 23rd. So December 23rd is going to be it's going to be a really fun episode. So we're going to do a live stream. My schedule is available. Jordan's schedule is available. We're going to do our normal Wednesday, 8 p.m. And we would love for anyone and everyone to come join us in the chat. And what we want to do is, this is the Network Collective, and we want to talk to everyone. So we are going to have some holiday cheer. We're going to do a little bit of look back throughout the year. 2020 is almost closed out, and a lot of us have some fun things to share. And what we want to do is we want to be able to bring people in to the live stream if you can. So if anyone wants to come in and have a little bit of holiday cheer with us, we're going to be doing silly Christmas hats and all kinds of fun stuff.
You're going to have to figure out some headphones. Yeah, there, man.
I'm gonna work something out. But it's going to be absolutely a ton of fun, and we just want to have fun. We just want to have fun with the community. We want to have fun with everybody. So if you're sitting at home and you're not doing anything, tune in, join us, hop in the chat, say hi, and we'd love to bring you on stream. And we want to do a little bit of a kind of like an ask me anything. So we want to be able to have a conversation with people, but also make this the opportunity to ask us a question, any question. I don't think, within reason, within reason, but we want to turn that around and ask you a question as well. So that goes both ways.
So we're calling this the Network Collective Holiday Exchange. We're not exchanging presents, well, because I don't have that kind of budget, but more along, we're going to exchange questions and exchange conversation and exchange holiday greetings. And it's just for whoever's around, and we'll jump on and we'll do the stream. And so if you want to come on with us, and have a short conversation, and we'll just, we're going to be hitting up some of our friends too and seeing who we can't get to show up to come join us for a holiday celebration. So that's the plan for next week. It's not going to be super technical. It's going to be all community focused, unless you want to ask us super technical questions. In which case, I guess we can play Stump the Chump, which is never fun, but we did say ask us almost anything. So, I'll embarrass myself if I need to. What
is IP protocol 132?
Something like that. Yeah, sure. And I'll go, let me go look it up, because I don't memorize things like that. So the Network Collective Holiday Exchange, you're going to be seeing quite a bit from us about that over the coming week. But it's the same time, same place. So if you're here now, you know what That's it is. Right. 8 p.m. next Wednesday.
I made a very, a shameless self-promotion promo video, very much in the way of like a used car commercial on terrestrial television. That's what I was going for. That was my theme. So I'm going to shoot that out on Twitter probably tonight, advertising for next week's episode. And if you guys could all share it anywhere you want, that would be great. And feel free to laugh at me, because that's what it's there for.
Right. And I think we'll record one more promo with the two of us. I think we still need to do that. Yeah. And, but no, it's just meant to have fun. Right. And so that's the deal. There's no expectations, and hopefully we get some friends to join us just before Christmas, and we can exchange some greetings, even though we can't do it in person, here virtually amongst the community.
That's right.
All right. And so with that, I think our last segment of today is Naked Hardware. I think there's some people who are sitting around waiting for Naked Hardware. Now I need to do some graphics, and I think it needs its own theme song.
Yep, it needs a little intro.
Naked Hardware. Yeah, I think we got to do an intro. We got to be legitimate streamers here for a segment like this, because this is going to continue. And so, Tony, I'm going to let you take it away, because you've been running with this. I'm assuming that we have some people who responded to last week's.
Yep. We got two people that responded to last week. So if you want to kick it over to my feed over here. All right. First, I'm going to review the image, what the image was. So this was last week's Naked Hardware Challenge. So this is what I showed everybody. This was a fun little piece of hardware We got this in at my office, and it is a little tiny switch. It's not so small, but it's like a half width, and it's very short as well. So we needed it for a specific form factor, and we needed something that could do the forwarding that we needed. So on the front end of that is all 10 gig SFPs, and I'll show you a front picture here in a moment. And there were two people that sort of guessed what it was. So I just went ahead and Googled so I could grab some pictures online. So this is kind of what the front of that box looks like. That's a Dell X4012 model switch. And it's a very cool little box. So those are all SFP plus 10 gig ports. So if you're in the need for something, that's half width, and it's very short also. It's okay. It's about as short. It's about as deep as it is wide. So yeah, it's almost a square.
That's interesting.
And yeah, it's a very cool little switch. So we needed them for some tight spaces, and I think we ended up changing the model of what we were using, but we still are using a Dell switch running Oni. We're using an X4112, which is a badass little switch. Actually, it might be an S4112. I have to check that model. But yeah, and it just so happens that someone who answered the question also linked to this site, which is Serve the Home. Serve the Home is a great little website for anyone interested in just like cool server hardware, networking hardware, all the kind of like cool stuff you want to see in your home, like building that ultimate home lab. And they actually did a breakdown of this switch, and funny enough, they have a naked hardware picture, almost exactly the same as mine. So the only difference between this one and mine is rotation, but also they will have this little plastic flap closed, which is shielding the power supply capacitors and things. So back to our winners. So this was the switch. Back to our winners. This is what I had moving around. Our two winners here. I can tell already
Chris Cummings on there. Chris, are you kidding me?
Chris Cummings was one of the first, but he was not the first one.
No.
He came in the number 2 slot. So our first one is actually going to be Jason Lesnick. Jason Lesnick, you're our winner for today.
Hold on. There's sound effects? You have sound effects?
Yeah, since you weren't making it happen, I was making it happen.
That's awesome.
I got a bell that I ring sometimes.
Oh, it's very manual. Very manual sound effects.
I got a cowbell under the desk I'm ringing. Yeah, so Chris and Jason Lesnick, and if I can move over to my other photos. All right, here we go. I just want to bring this up for timing, because let's see, this was Jason's. This was Jason's really post.
Tiny. Yeah.
Hang on, I'll zoom it in. Let me get the image up. All right, that was Chris's. Where is Jason's? Perhaps this one. So I just want to bring up. This one, this is our post, and I just wanted to say when they came in. So Jason actually answered the question on our live stream tweet, not the Naked Hardware tweet, but I'm giving him credit anyways because he went ahead and tagged himself in there. So, and if I can find the original timing of that one, he beat Chris in by just a few moments.
It doesn't really matter.
Probably a few minutes.
We put Chris on a holdback timer anyway because he's winning them all.
Right,
so sorry, Chris. Wah,
but
wah,
that is,
wah. If you want your sound effects, there it is.
So
sad
crazy. Wah, wah, wah. Isn't that so crazy though? If we were counting Chris, I think he's 4-0.
Yeah, he's
so I'm just very interested to see for how long we keep this up. If there are any other players that can continue a run greater than 4-0.
It's pretty impressive.
I don't know. He must be doing some like reverse image search or something. There's no way he's seen inside these boxes and knows what they are. All right. So let's get on to
he's cheating is what you're saying.
Yeah, Jason Lesnick, we're going to reach out to you via Twitter. I'll send you a direct message from the Network Collective account, and we'll exchange addresses. And for any of you that have already answered and have not gotten your swag, Jordan and I are organizing that, how to get that out to everybody, getting to the post office safely with coronavirus and with Christmas coming up. So we're trying to get everything organized and trying to send them out in a batch so everyone can get their stuff before Christmas. Yep. But please stick with us. We will get it in the mail to you. And if it doesn't make it by Christmas, accept my apologies.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now let's get ready for next week's Naked Hardware Challenge. Chris, you can leave now. Give everyone else a chance. All right. Next week's Naked Hardware Challenge. I'm going to also tweet this out on the Network Collective Twitter account. So here's a little preview of what you get. I hope I have whited out and blocked out the right components. Good luck. All right. Have fun. Good luck. That's all you get. You'll have to. That's just a preview. That's all you get.
That's all you get.
But yeah. But that was the Dell X4012. Yes, sir. Yeah, and that's a neat little switch. And I imagine we could probably get the Noctua fans in here and make this a little silent, really powerful switch to have in my basement. Anyhow, I found 4 of these on eBay for $500 a piece. They're gone now. That was a good buy, man. That was a good buy.
Oh man. All right. So we'll get that. Yeah. We'll get that out on Twitter. So that is coming soon. Tony's going to get that out just as soon as we're done with the stream here. And so Tony, yes, I think it's time to close it up.
Yeah, we need an outro song too.
We have a bumper, an outro bumper.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we'll rock to that.
Do we need you're saying we need a song underneath us as we're saying goodbye? Is that what you're saying? And then we need to like transition?
Yeah, to play us out.
Play us out. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll work on that. So
I'm telling you, man, we got some exciting stuff coming for next year. If I just, we're just going to tune this stream up.
Nope. It's all a refinement process. We're figuring it out as we go along. So for those of you who stuck with us, thank you for again trying new things as we did the taped replay of the demo. Hopefully that was valuable. We're going to be doing more demos like that and trying to bring more content like that to you. Obviously, if you're here, you know about us. So I'm not going to belabor the point. Just go to networkcollective.com to find us if you're looking for things that for our content, other podcasts, other streams,
and share us out. You know what I mean? Go ahead and post links to this stream on your social medias if you guys are outreaching somewhere. That's always helpful.
No,
and just to circle back around with Rob and Elastiflow, Elastiflow.com went live today, and I'm hanging out over in the Elastiflow Slack. So
are you now?
Because I'm a user of the product, so I want to get in there. Absolutely.
All right. Good deal. So if you're looking for us, obviously our social media are up there on the screen, but Network Collective, you can hit us up at Net Collective PC on Twitter. If you want to participate in the Naked Hardware Challenge, obviously you'll need to go and follow so that you can see the pictures and respond. We're also, Facebook fixed our link. This week, I was able to find a human being at Facebook who was able to fix our link. I now can post networkcollective.com content to Facebook, which is something I've not been able to do for about a year and a half. So finally, only a year and a half to get resolution on that link being. Apparently, I have no idea who owned it before me, but they permabanned it because something, I don't know what they were doing. So it makes me a little nervous. But now, so we're there. So if you're there, just get another place to follow us, and engage with us. And, last but not least, I mean, if you listen regularly and you like what we do, just consider being a supporter. There's some cool perks that come with it, but ultimately helps us do stuff like this. It's $5 a month. It's less if you buy a year up front. So it's not all that expensive. Cup of coffee, like it's not too much, but it really does help. So if you could do that, just go to networkcollective.com, become a supporter. There's a post I wrote there about the worst sales pitch you'll ever read, because I am not a sales guy. So, but if you are a supporter, you get to be in the Network Collective Slack, and do all of that. You get merch at cost, which apparently is broken. I was just told today that whether you're signed in or not, it's not that way. So you will eventually get merch at cost. it was that way and I broke it somewhere. And really it's just about community, right? So the idea is, we're going to keep putting together content like this, whether you support us or not. That's not the point. There'll always be, the free avenue for Network Collective. But if you're really engaged and you really want to find people to communicate with and have the ability to build that community for yourself, we've got a really good thing going there. And it's one of the biggest perks about that supporter role and helping us out. So thanks again for joining us and listening to the stream, watching the stream and kind of hanging out with us. And we'll see you next time.